Well, look at that. I think it's actually going to work. So there's a few of you watching. I'm just going to wait a few minutes and get a few more people coming in. So you don't mind if I drink my tea. Hi, BJ. So it seems like the Facebook stream is like 20 seconds. There's a bit of a delay between when I'm actually broadcasting and doing stuff and actually showing up on Facebook. So if you guys have any questions, just type them out. And then once I'm done a little section, I'll just kind of scroll back and see if there's anything I need to review. So let's go for it. So let me just change everything all up here. So this is Soundminer version 5. This is a very early beta. It's 64-bit. There's been an awful lot of changes under the hood. I'm hoping they're all for the better hood going forward, because it was a real strain on me emotionally. A lot of late nights, a lot of waking up in the middle of the night with great ideas, I hope. So let's jump right into it. So over on the left side here, there's a new little section that you can open and close. And this is sort of like when you want to start a search and you don't really know what you want to do. You want to like sort of browse through your database. So I can browse through all my different categories. These are the drop downs. So these will be fields that there's a lot of commonality between them. So you're not going to have like a description field in here because they're pretty much unique. But things like category, path name, that's going to be shared by a lot of records, and so it makes sense for them to show up. So manufacturer is another one as well. So I can view category, and then by clicking on one of these, I can now browse through all my records. Now this is I just scanned in a few records just to sort of like begin. There isn't that many, I don't think, really. Let me find out. Yeah, this is just like 1,500. So I'm not going to get many records back when I go through, but they're from all types of different manufacturers, so it's going to give you a good example of what it is that you can expect. So by clicking on horror, there's all my files that begin with horror in the category. And these are sort of interrelated as well. So let's go to something that I know shows up in a few libraries. So if I go to animals and then go to path name, I've got a drop down here of the libraries that have animals in their category. So I've got ones from SoundDocs and I've got ones from SoundFuse. And you can see up here, I've got these little pills. So it's showing me right now that I'm searching inside path name, and it's the SoundDogs path name for the category animals. And these are the records that come back. Oh, I'm just having a quick look at the comments. Yeah, it's happening. It's going on. It's very exciting. Okay, so getting back to the pills, if I decide, you know what, I just now want to see what's on SoundDogs, I can clear off the animals, and there's everything that's now with that path name SoundDogs. And of course, this is, actually what I'll do is I'll go to Frank's. He sent me a database. So you can actually see, this is path name. So this is how he has everything organized on his drive. So he's got the HD Professional, and then all of his libraries are underneath. So you can see like bullets 1, it has a disclosure triangle. So I could just click on bullets 1. It's going to bring back absolutely everything, which is 556 records. Or I can open it up and just call up part 1, part 2, part 3. So that's pretty cool. Another cool thing about this is it's sort of dynamic based on what you type into the search bar up there. So if I do, I don't know, let's do a search for gun. So right now, out of all of the records that have gun somewhere in its metadata, these are the categories that sort of apply. Could change this to path name as well. So same thing. Obviously, Frank has a lot of guns, and so the majority of sounds are actually coming from Frank's database. Well, also because I'm on Frank's database. So let me swap back out of that. And we'll do that again. Let's go for gun. Okay, so I've got some synthesized gun sounds. So I'm just going to watch the volume here. It looks like it's going to be loud. There we go. Yeah, it's going to save a lot of time, I think. A lot of time. And here, we'll swap to manufacturer here while I have a sip of my tea. I'll just clear everything. Clear this too. So here's all the manufacturers. So right now I could, here's a couple of my sounds. So here's like a cow eating. And then I'll just go through and change this back to category. And there's the categories. So very, very nice way for you to sort of just browse through your library, get it down to a manageable set of records before you even have to do like really a search. So it's really good for browsing. So that's the left side of the pane. Any questions on the left side? If not, I'll move over to the right side. So this has changed a little bit. There used to be a summary thing inside Soundminer, but now let's close this down here. I'll just bring back the records for. So you can think of everything on the left as being without a search, other than what you've typed into the search bar. Everything on the right sort of applies to your current search. So if I just do a search for animal again, so here's all of the path names that apply to that. So it's sort of related to this, but it gets more useful when you start like chaining all types of different things together, because with the lock icon now, I can now search for source. So now what I did is held Option key down and clicked on the source column. So I'm now searching for source, Sonic Shepherd, and the term is animal. And it's telling me, well, just this one library applies, the elephants in the room. So if I clicked on this now, it's going to add all three of those terms together. So I've got elephants in the room, the source is Sonic Shepherd, and the search term is animal. Oh, only 2 layers, Paul, on the left side. I may change that. Like, there's no real reason why it stuck at 2. It just seems convenient. So, maybe I'll go up to 3 or something like that. But there is technically no limit. It just seemed like 2 kind of felt good. Okay, right, getting back to it here. Paul was just asking how many layers can you have in the side panel. So let's start removing some of these terms again. So by doing this now, I'm seeing everything that's in elephants in the room. It works for all kinds of other things too. So if I start using the folder browser, you can see it's constantly updating the pill. There's a current bug with the metadata where the artwork isn't showing up, but I'll just choose one of these. We'll go Pro Tools. So even though I clicked inside the metadata panel, the pill has been added up there. So let's move over to artwork. So artwork now will filter depending on what you're searching. So again, if I do a search for gun, there I've now got 2 pieces of artwork. So if I wanted to search with that icon with the term gun, I would lock and then just click, and there's my 2 records that apply. If I didn't want that, I'll just get rid of artwork. I could probably just click on Frank. No, it always adds it. Sometimes it clears it, sometimes it doesn't. It's whatever seemed to like make sense. So I guess in my programming fur, that sort of made sense at the day. And you can also use the back button to go back, or you can just clear the pill. There we go, clear the artwork. All right, so that's that section. Now, the other cool thing is the tag to database. So what this allows you to do is choose a target database. So what I'll do is create one. Let's say I'm going to work on that's like a new game. I'm actually playing Rocksmith 2014 right now downstairs. So it's now going to be 2018. So as I'm going through my database, there we go. What I can do is call this up. I'm going to say I'm going to be working on Rocksmith 2018. So let me give you a little bit of background on this. So I'm finding like in a lot of facilities, what happens is people are taking their monster databases and they're trying to make show databases, or like if they're working on a video game, it would be like whatever the project is. And they're just copying records from one database to another, but they want to change the metadata so that it's like, well, yeah, this sound was an elephant roar, but I'm now working on Jurassic Park. I need it to be a raptor. So what this will allow you to do is tag sounds from one database to another, but change the metadata as you tag it, if that makes sense. Yes, it does, Matt. Matt was asking if option clicking on a field applies to any index fields, and yeah, any field that's visible, you can option click on it. So I could click on this 2 seconds and 4 milliseconds, and it'll show me other records that match, which obviously is just that one. Okay, anyway, getting back to this. So let me clear this out so I can show you exactly how this all works. So you choose a field to assign, and this is pretty much the same thing as you saw in the left panel. It's all those columns that have a lot of information that's common between records. So I'm going to say category, and I'm going to add a new one. And this is going to be, I said it's going to be Rocksmith, right? So this will be like guitar put downs or something, right? And then I'll do another one that's like pick slides. Excuse my typos. Mic feedback. And then you can sort of like go through your database, and then you can choose, okay, for these records that I've got selected right here, these are going to be really good for mic feedback. And there's an option here to how it's going to behave when it encounters the same file path. It's going to be like, well, is it going to update the existing tags or skip it? So remember, this database is completely empty right now. So I'm going to say update the tags if it exists and add it, and that's done. And then I'll go through and I'll find some others and go, oh yeah, this is good for the guitar pat downs or put downs. And you can do other things too as well. So we can go show. We'll assign this to be Justin's cool show. So now when I've got both of them selected, it's going to be changing both of those pieces of metadata. So let's select some more here, ones that I haven't, and add them. So now if I swap back to my Rocksmith, in an ideal world, you can see right here, there's all my categories. So if we're going through and building up a show is going to be absolutely amazing. I mean, it's sort of, you don't need the spotting panel anymore, because people used to use the spotting panel for that. Used to be like, well, this is my guitar put downs. And you'd have to be tagging files in and out, but you wouldn't know whether or not you'd already tagged the file. You wouldn't be able to change the metadata as it was going through. You'd have to rely on the folder structure to sort of tell you what it is that you wanted to explain. Whereas now it's like, no, it's all right there. So then you could hand this database off to an editor, and off you go. Oh, got another few questions here. Let me just go back and read through. Is there a shortcut key to clear the pills? Not currently. Key commands is something I haven't addressed yet. So a lot of this, the usability stuff still needs to be improved before this thing gets released. So assigning key commands is obviously one of that. To let you in on some of the geekiness behind the scenes, what it's doing is it's issuing a command to clear the key commands. So I've sort of planned ahead, thinking that, okay, then a key command is then going to execute that command. So the legwork is done, but I haven't gotten around to actually finishing up all the key commands yet. So it's going to be pretty cool. Let's see what else. Yeah, Kai's asking, when you tag to a new database, it's only tagging to that database and not the file. That's right. So right now, the original metadata remains intact. So it's only inside the database that it's changed. Any other questions on the tag to database? The other cool thing is this list is sort of built dynamically. So a lot of facilities have custom database templates. So they actually have things like show category and show subcategory. So those would show up. So when I choose here, I would see like show subcategory. The idea there is you can keep the original category intact, and you're just constantly changing one of these other fields. Yeah, Vijay's asking if you can make a selection. So yeah, I think I did that. So let's go back to Soundminer DB, go down to the end. I'm going to change this show now. So I'll just create a new one. This is a new show. And for some reason, I'm going to tag it into that database, but whatever. So I just add. So there's the selection of sounds. I'll swap back. I have to view my show field. There we are. So there's Justin's cool show, and there's the sounds I just added with new show. And you can see it left the original category the same. That's because I deleted it, but I could have, if I kept it up. As long as nothing is selected in it. Raptor sounds. As long as I don't have anything checked, it's going to leave it as it was. Yeah, Jeremiah is asking about keyboard shortcuts as well. Not yet. That's all something. Or the time selection in a record. That's a good question. I don't even know. It might. Let's try it. So I'm going to take this one. I have to make sure that it's not a sound that I have already tagged. I'll do a selection. I'll try pitching it down. Actually, I'm pretty sure that it won't tag. Yeah, because those regions don't exist. Yeah, no. That's a good question, though. Oh, yeah, Kai's asking if you can scroll through the menus by typing now. Yeah, quite a few of them. So like column view, you can get to that. Anything of the built-in Apple OS that show up, that'll work. Anyway, so that's tagged to database. So that's going to be really good for supervisors working on shows. Let's move on to something else. Oh, Ryan's asking, how does embedding metadata affect this feature? Will it then change the original file? Yeah, it will. So the file is still the same file. It's not made a copy of the file anywhere. So there's the original sound file right there in my sounds for stream. So if I was to swap back and find that same file, you'll see it's like the exact same folder path. So if I embedded the metadata, it would overwrite. Matt's asking, does it work on server databases as well? Yes, it does. You need to have proper permission. So you need to have edit records permission. But then, yeah, you can tag from multiple source databases into that destination one. All right, let's move on to, well, this is no longer VST plugins. This is now VST and audio unit plugins. So one of the reasons that I'm a little behind on this thing, because I wanted to get it out in the fall, was because Steinberg went and deprecated VST 2.4, which is kind of a mixed blessing because a lot of the crashes that come from Soundminer are typically from plugins anyway. So what I've done is I've added support for audio unit. Now it supports audio unit V2 and V3. Now, the nice thing about V3, there isn't many at this point in time. I think it's only been since High Sierra that V3's come out, but one second. But V3 plugins are actually hosted out of process, which means that if a funky plugin was to crash, it's not going to take Soundminer down with it. It will automatically relaunch in the background. So I think that's going to be amazing going forward. So yeah, you've got your audio unit plugins. So here's the Waves plugin, and these are the latest. This is the version 10, I think. Yeah, version 10 and 64-bit, obviously. So all that stuff is exactly the same. You can still MIDI control it like you could before, save presets, all that jazz. This section's changed. So it used to be that you had a little preset button and you had like a flat list. So now it's a nested list, and I can create any sort of folder structure that I want. So again, if I was working on my Rocksmith show, I'd be doing that, and then I could save this preset into there. We'll call it a compression. So there it is. So obviously you can nest and rearrange these to your heart's content. You can also export them to another user. To do that, you just take the preset and you drag it off Soundminer, and it shows up on wherever you drop it. To import it, the user just drags it into their preset list, and there you go. And you can load it from here as well. So that will make those people which have tons and tons of plugins much, much easier. Presets, Kai's asking about presets. Yeah, you can import version 4.5 presets from there. It'll take you to your Soundminer folder if you have them, and then you just import the preset list. And it'll import everything all flat, and then you can go through afterwards and rearrange it. Yeah, whoa. Now, I'm hoping to actually make this searchable as well. So there'll be a little pull down bar. So you can say, comp, and it'll bring you back everything that's all named compression. So that would be pretty cool. Or even search for a certain plugin as well. I'm not quite sure. That's why I'm kind of putting this into people's hands soon, so I can get some feedback as to what people want. Because I think that'd be kind of cool. It'd be neat to say, show me everything that uses like the L2 plugin or like a Mondo mod plugin or something like that. Because then you could just be going through all of your different presets. Yeah, I agree, Paul. That's a good comment. Useful for VO processing. Totally. Okay, so that's the processing rack. Actually, I'll probably keep that open, but I'll take that plug in, kill everything. Yeah. So now, what else? Well, there's this one little button over here that I'm itching to hit. So why don't I do that? So this is the Radium built-in sampler. So right now I'm not running, I have Reaper running in the background, but that was just in case I wanted to spot something in. This is all completely standalone. So I can choose what MIDI controller I have here. So these are all my MIDI inputs. So I have right now a Code 49 hooked up, and actually I'll just bring up the camera. There we are. So any MIDI controller will work. And what you want to be doing is inside Soundminer. Let's do Elephant. So the whole reason this kind of came about was because anyone that's watched those old like DVD behind the scenes specials, you know, especially like Jurassic Park, where you see like Gary Rydstrom on an old synclavier and he's like layering sounds to make these dinosaur sounds. That's just, it's something that people have always asked for Soundminer to be able to do. And eventually, you know, get enough requests and we decide, actually, it's a pretty good idea. It's always been a good idea, but we knew how much work it was to make a sampler that was really geared for sound effects work. So let me show you how this works. So I can mark an in and out point if I wanted to. Actually, I'll choose something really wide. There is commands here to load it into a sampler slot. I have it assigned to my MIDI keyboard. So this blue button right here will send controller number 107, which does a load. And then from here, I can adjust the in point and the out point. And there it is. If I hit middle C, there's the original sound. But then, of course, you can play it at different pitches. And it's fully polyphonic. Now it has let's go in the middle here. So attack, so you can sort of fade up into it. One of the other cool things, Reaper has this in their little simpler, but not a lot of other samplers do, is let's say you have a long release time. And I purposely truncated this sound right here. So you can hear it's cutting off. So this little button down here, the fade, allows me to add a tiny little fade to that sound file. So it's not going to get cut off. So this gets really important when you get into like low frequency sounds, because the last thing you want is, you know, a click, especially as it's releasing. So this just makes sure it's all nice and clean. Now you can do other things as well. So reverse it, flip the channels around. I can recall the sound as well. So in Soundminer, I've gone to a completely different sound. If I've decided, you know what else was in that file, I can recall it. You see it's loaded me back up into Soundminer. I could readjust my in and out point if I wanted to, and then just reload it, which I will click right there. So there's the sound reloaded. Kai's asking a question here. Can you set MIDI preset buttons to other parts of Soundminer? That's an interesting question too, because right now the MIDI control of the plugins still requires routing it through the rewire bus. And that's something I'm kind of thinking I should get away from, because I'd love it if a lot of those key commands could be triggered by this built-in MIDI controller. All right, let's get back to it here. So let me change my release time. Right now I've got a pitch bend of up an octave and down an octave. And of course I can change how much I want to go up and down. And there's also this lag feature, which allows you to, it sort of smooths out. So if you're doing something like really crazy, it just adds a little bit of slide to all of those numbers. Here's your tuning. So I can tune this whole thing down an octave. that's useful when you start layering sounds, which is going back to the Gary Rydstrom example. You know, you would take something like this sound, and then let's do a search for predatory birds. Okay, we'll load that into slot 2. So you have 4 slots, and then sort of like layer these together. So now when I hit a key, it's playing them both at the same time, and then I can go through and pitch, adjust, volume adjust, all these things. VJ's asking about multi-mode plugins, or multi-mono plugins. With Audio Unit, they're pretty much all multi-channel support, I think. So it shouldn't be an issue. You just load, if you have like a 6-channel sound file, you just load it up. VST, there was either mono variants or stereo variants, or it was like a fixed channel count. But with Audio Unit, I don't think you have that problem. All right, so let's pretend I came up with something kind of cool. Actually, before we do that, let's get some effects going on this. So each one of these slots is completely independent of the other. So I've got an individual pitch envelope. So why don't I just solo this one for now? I can pitch it down. Yeah, I'm not going to do my best work here, but you're going to get the idea. And then I'll do a ring modulator on it. So this is just affecting that one slot. The other one is still playing as normal. And it's just added this chatter to it. And then the Patsy cry, let's pitch that. I don't know, see what it sounds like up. I could decide, what else is cool? The delay button, that will actually delay the sample. A number of, so I could, because there is silence before this, I could readjust it. So you can see here how it's starting later. But I could keep it truncated and then just use the delay slider if I crank it up. So that's a way of sort of, synchronizing. That's my first crash. Look at that. Awesome. I'll save that one for later. That's not bad. How far along did I get? 32 minutes? I can see my stream has a slash through it, so I'm going to watch the Facebook stream just to make sure it still works. Seems to be. Is it now? No, it looks like the stream has stopped. Oh, okay. No, the stream seems to be working. It might be a quality control thing or something. I don't know. Vijay, I'm not sure what you mean by multi-mono plugins. You can ask me afterwards, I think. I think I answered it. And Jamie's asking if these are savable. Not in this current version. I'm still working out on the format of how to save and recall these things. And Matt's asking if you have to record. You do have to record. Now, you don't have to have a keyboard. So I've loaded this telephone sound in. So I can hit record. It's going to ask me where I want to save these sounds. I'll just save it onto the desktop for now. And right now it's waiting for me to hit a key. So I can hit middle C on this virtual keyboard. And then it'll pop up right there. And then from here I could just drag it onto whatever I wanted. Now it should, when I drag off of Soundminer, swap me automatically to my target DAW, but it's not doing that at this point. That's a little bug I have to fix. but it would make dragging it onto a track completely easier. Okay, thanks for letting me know the stream's working. I just have this big X on my streaming software, and I'm wondering what that means. I am recording this thing, just in case it does bail. I can always like play it back. Okay, so let's see. Where was I before my little crash? So yeah, layering sounds. This is the transfer section. So this is showing me all the sounds that I've transferred. I can double click one of these sounds, and it will load up into the player. Now, I'm not losing my selection. This is another change that happened in V5. So a lot of people hated that when you used the record button in Soundminer and did your whatever it is you wanted to do, and then you clicked stop, you would lose all of your contents. It would swap you to the RAM database. Well, it doesn't do that anymore. Now it just loads that sound up into this little playback area, but it keeps everything the same up there. And of course, so that's me playing around with some pitch. I could load this into the sampler, right? So call this up. I'll hit my button. So there's that. Oh, something weird happened again. See, this is good that I'm doing this demo. I'm finding all kinds of like little weirdness, things that are happening. There we go. So there's the sound reloaded back into the sampler. Okay, let me see what's questions. So that's cutting off the recording based on detected silence. It's okay. So what happens when I click record? It's not actually recording anything until I hit my first MIDI note on. So it's not looking for the audio. It's waiting for a MIDI note. So if I do that and click off, you can see even though I hit the pitch wheel before I hit the note, it's still nice and tight. And that is that a toggable feature? Not really, not from the sampler, because you kind of really want to wait until you get your first note on, because otherwise, why would I bother recording silence at this point? I'm not generating any sound yet, so as soon as I hit my first note on, then it's recording. Now from this point on, it actually is recording the silence, and that's why there's this little pause button up here, which allows me to pause the recording. Right now, when I stop, you're going to see there's a bunch of silence until I start hitting more keys. So there we go. There's the silence. So let's do that again, but this time, so now silence. I'll wait for things to ring out. I can pause it. I can do whatever it is. I can try more things, play around with more plugins. And these are, of course, are all the built-in Soundminer plugins. So there we go. I added a phaser to it. So now I'll unpause, and it tells me I'm recording again. And now you can see the space is very small in comparison. Oh, and as far as if you didn't have a MIDI keyboard, it's recording for as long as I hold the note down. So it's still recording that silence and everything. It works pretty much the same way as a regular keyboard. So I can have a nice long release time. Hit record. Now the important thing to notice about this is sort of like the chain of how this works is the sampler is in sort of the same sort of layer as the playback engine. So it feeds the VST rack. So I can put plugins onto the VST rack. I am going to use the VST version of Doppler. So by now I can be using Soundminer as a trigger, and I could be recording all of this stuff as well as I wanted to. If I had multiple hands, I could be doing pitch bend wheels and moving this thing around, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And when you record, it's recording the final output of everything. So that's pretty cool. Let's see if we can find something that's a bit more easier to hear. Plugins. I've only installed a few just for this demo. Well, there we go. a bunch of delays. So it's been recording. So I'll tap off record. Pretty cool, right? All right, so other things you can do in the sampler. Let's get rid of this. So we've still got our original sound, which has the phaser. I'm going to decide to throw the panner. Actually, panner's not a very good one. Let's turn the phaser off. We'll go to the pitch shifter. Turn it on. So this is the pitch shifter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to modulate it. So there's a number of ways I could do this. I could use an LFO modulator, and it comes with a bunch of little presets. So I can choose like a sine wave. And then here, I'm going to click and say for the LFO, I want it to go to the pitch shift frequency or something. Shift amount. There we go. So you can see right now, the LFO is modulating the sound. And I can change the speed of that LFO. I can choose how much it affects the sound. So if I just wanted it to do a small little modulation. And if I didn't want that, let's just delete this. I can also choose the source to be something like the modulation wheel on my keyboard. And I want it to go to, again, the pitch shift. What was it again? What am I doing? Shift amount. There we go. Okay. I don't know. I think that's pretty cool. Let's turn that off. Or just, what should we do now? Okay, yeah, the other envelopes. So what I'll do is I'll turn off the LFO. Now this envelope, this is another source. Now this is one that you can draw. And then you can assign that. It shows up. At least it should. Oh, I haven't done that yet. Okay, so yeah, I need to expose that envelope. That's just a custom envelope. The idea being that it would then allow you to control one of these little functions down there. So that doesn't work. I have to make a note of that. The amplitude envelope, yeah, so that allows you to just draw in a volume graph. And it tracks. So if I play it down an octave, it's going to track. Like that's not based on milliseconds, that's based on where it is in the sampler. So when it reaches this point right here, it's always going to be at full volume. And that works for the, to a degree, the pitch envelope as well. So the pitch envelope allows me to just draw in what I want it to do. And by holding the Option key down, I can change the curve type to make it go smooth between them. I can hold the Shift key down, and I can sort of like shift it around. Control key again will delete points. What other things? This is really, I mean, I could probably spend like hours on this thing. But I think that's going to be a pretty good little introduction. Any questions? Well, while the stream catches up, what I'll do is I'll just say that there's a few things that don't work, and I've noted them here. So, Auto Detective Pro Tool session. It doesn't currently work because I'm waiting for a 64-bit SDK from Avid. So that should not be a problem. As soon as I get it, I'll just drop it in. Annoying little bug is when it's scanning, if I was to click anywhere on Soundminer, it will cancel the scan. So because this is like an early little preview, and I actually am going to let people watch this thing or play with this thing, you just got to make sure that when you scan files in, that you Just let it be. And then you'll be fine. As far as other things, yeah, the artwork in the side panel is intermittent, so it's not really showing up sometimes. So I would say probably don't use this version to do any like embedding. Just use it to like play around with and try to make it crash like I did. The other thing is, because the database format is completely changed, I don't know if I mentioned that. I've been talking to a few people about this. You do have to scan in your sounds into this. I will eventually, before the release version, make a version that takes all of your old databases and converts them. If you're using server databases, it will work fine. Nothing's changed in that regard. It's just the local databases will need to be scanned in. And there's just a list of some of the things that I still have to do. And right there, this is the Steve Jobs moment here. I'm going to copy the link location. This is when you say, oh, is there anything else? Let me just go to the stream. There we go. So anyone that's feeling brave, you can download it. It will work until January of the new year. It's 64-bit. Give it a go. Let me know how it goes. Oh, and it uses your existing 4.5 Pro license. So obviously there is going to be an upgrade charge for this, and Steve and I are still thinking $150, which I think is great value considering all the things that have changed and all the things you're going to get with it. Kai's asking if these sounds are recorded to a folder. Yep, they are all recorded. So it's where that transfer path was. So if I open this up, I can reveal the transfer path, which was the desktop. So there's all the sounds that I've been recording. So yeah, they don't get recorded into RAM. Jeremiah, this is a good question. Jeremiah is asking whether he can run this concurrently without balking his 4.5. Exactly. Actually, I haven't even gone through the preferences. So for the beta period, it's using a different folder entirely. So it doesn't even touch your existing Soundminer V4 preferences. So you can see right now it's application support, and it's a folder called Soundminer V5 Beta. So yeah, application preferences. Here I was thinking, man, that only took 40 minutes. That wasn't so bad. Well, there's a whole lot of stuff in here. A whole lot of stuff has changed. The ability to, view the timeline. You can see as I toggle this on and off right here. You don't have to mess around with this anymore. So everything's just a little bit more centralized. One of the biggest changes has happened in the transfer preferences. So this was one that gets requested a lot, to match the source file sample rate and bit depth. Now, obviously, the reason it used to enforce a certain sample rate or bit depth was mainly because of Pro Tools. We were all living in Pro Tools world, and it couldn't have mixed sample rates. But as people start using other platforms like Reaper, who have no problems with different sample rates, it's like, well, if I have a 96K source file, I want to transfer it into Reaper at 96K, or vice versa. Or I have like 44 kilohertz. I don't want to be doing any conversion. So that's what that allows you to do. You can, in the naming scheme now, you can actually put in pitch. And it will mark down, as I transfer files, it will say what the percentage is of the pitch adjustment. So that's kind of cool. The interleaved poly. So if I expand this out, I can choose the IXML track layout. So this is really good for dialogue editors if they've got polyphonic files and they want to transfer it to multi-mono. It's using IXML, the information inside there for the channel names. Sometimes it can be a bit buggy just because of the way all these manufacturers store all that information. Sometimes it's in the IXML chunk. Sometimes it's in the broadcast wave chunk. And, when you get a file, you're like, I don't know where it's been and what's been updated or what hasn't been updated. So this way, your actual file name is going to be named, whatever your base is, and it's just going to append, instead of a .l or a .a1 or whatever, it's going to append that portion of the IXML track layout. So let's say you have 3 people talking, and their mics are called Justin's mic, Jamie's mic, Kai's mic, and you choose the second one. it's going to be called the base name .jamie.wav. So that's what that one does. So that one's a pretty cool one. Let's see what else. Anything else has changed? Just a lot of convenience factors, like you can reveal the transfer path right from there. If you have a transfer path, actually, let me just get rid of the sampler out the way. So if I find a transfer path, I should be able to just drag and drop it. Oh, he says it's because I've made it a floating window. Yeah, okay. That's something else I have to change. If this wasn't, it's because it's a floating window, so it goes into the background when Soundminer is not forefront. But you could drag and drop. There are ways of doing it, I think, if I had multiple monitors. Let's see if I can figure it out. So if I hold the command key down, is it the command key? One of them does it. I will get it. There it is, command key, drag, and now I can drop it right onto my transfer path. Of course, I chose the same one. There we go. So that's that. The colors, a lot more customization with the colors. So a lot of this rewrite was to kind of bring everything up to date and modernize. Because it turned out like a lot of the crashes I'm also getting are like 32-bit crashes, probably because Apple doesn't test their frameworks anymore. And a lot of things with like the NS user defaults, which was how preferences got saved, they were getting resetting. And I think that a lot of that had to do with plugin manufacturers were also using it. So I've tried to take as many of the preferences out of that space, so a plugin can't affect any of the preferences inside Soundminer. Because what was happening is you'd load up like a plugin like Altiverb, and the colors would change. Like you'd get like a black background. It's probably because they use the same, what's called a key, in their preferences as I did, like background color. Like who wouldn't use that? Makes sense, right? But because you're all sharing the same user space, when they reset the color, it would reset the color in Soundminer. So now everything is a lot more separate. You got color presets. I will make it so that you can save your own. You've got more control as well, so like things like the spotting panel. If I move over to that, you can see spotting panel, background color, the metadata panel color, all the things to do with that. So I can make it really ugly here. The label color, all that stuff. Oh, live relink. Yeah, this is really cool. Okay. Man, I should have made some notes. I'm sort of like just flying by the seat of my pants on this thing, which is pretty much how I always live life. Okay, so let's say that this folder gets moved, or like I'm moving somewhere, or like I'm going to a different location. Maybe my drive name has changed. I don't know, but for this example, I'm going to say that this Glassdoor Slides isn't called Glassdoor Slides anymore. It's called Slided. How about that? So obviously when I try to play the sound, it's not there anymore. So with the relink thing, you can say whatever the source path is. So it was Thor, sounds for a stream, a sound effect, sampler, anti-sample, Glassdoor Slides. So there's the source one. And here's the destination, or the new path. So I'll just change it to Glassdoor Slided. So now what happens, whenever I try to play a sound, it's going to automatically do that substitution. Now I showed it happening on like a folder level, but it could also be like really high up. So I've got like a folder called Sounds for Stream. There we go. I'm going to change the entire thing to _2. So now let's add another one. The source path is going to be Sounds for Stream. The new path is there, Sounds for Stream 2. So now all those files will play. And it will automatically link up to other formats as well. So say your source database is all WAV files. If you've pointed it to somewhere and the WAV file doesn't exist, but a FLAC file does, it will automatically relink up to that. So that's really useful if you're just very portable, you're moving around and your volume names are changing. You can just completely change the entire volume name as well if I wanted to. So I could say that everything on the Thor drive is now on the Waves drive. Of course, that's not going to work, but you know what I mean. Any other questions? Let me have a little look here. Oh, thanks for all the nice comments. Yeah, this is cool. Support path. Yeah, nothing's changed in the support path for freelance mode. The download link is working. It should be. I'll try it again in a second. Oh, other file types in the transfers, BJ was asking. Yeah, so you've got FLAC now as a transfer format. Yeah, Jamie's asking about the Audio Ease plugins resetting. Yeah, I think it will. Paul's asking if it's going to be available on Mac and PC. So a lot of this code is now all cross-platform. So pretty much the only thing I can tell you right now, the only thing that is Apple specific is the toolbar and this control right here. Absolutely everything else, all of this, the waveform, everything to do in the side panel, that's all cross-platform. Now, of course, I just have to like code it into the PC version. So the plan is to get this version out, everyone to use it, and then the same thing that I did with the Pro Pack. It only took like a few months to just backport all of those features into the Pro Pack, and then off you go. But I do have the sampler running on the PC because that was very important to me, that the sampler was going to work as I was like programming it and figuring out what kind of like sample rate algorithms to use for pitch shifting and everything. I wanted to make sure that it was going to work great on PC as well, and it does. So the sampler is absolutely works exactly the same on Mac and PC. Yeah, Tim's saying about the drive name. Yeah, it is pretty cool. Ryan's asking if it's the entire database. Yeah, if the entire database is on one drive, you can just do what I did right there. If you have multiple, if it spans multiple drives, then you would just keep on adding. Obviously, it's only showing me the files that I have on Thor. So let's just add some stuff from Banner. Yeah. I name all my drives after superheroes. Don't judge me. I do have a Linda Carter. She's not a superhero. Should be called Wonder Woman, but you know, whatever. I was a fan of Linda Carter growing up. Okay, so now I should have under source. What happened? This might be a bug where it didn't update. Let me just toggle off and on again. There we go. So now I can choose. There's my second drive. So Banner is now. Oh, Banner is now also on Waves, so you can sort of amalgamate as well. Tim's asking, iLok only for now? Yeah, because I really don't want this to be used in facilities too much, and facilities typically use HASP. I would say with this version, use it, play around with it. You'll find, obviously, that the sampler doesn't work over rewire. That's more of a less a technical reason, but the latency is just way too high. I didn't find it usable at all. So it will work with multiple interfaces. If you have a USB, like I have a Yamaha AG06 little USB console, it works great with that. But yeah, I would say don't embed, because I'm not 100% sure that the embed code is going to work okay. But other than that, it should work fine. Yeah, and Charles is asking, does the alpha build with the current? Yeah, it will work until the new year, January 1st, and with the current 4.5 Pro license. Yeah, and the final version is going to be January, if not sooner. All right. Oh, what else? Okay. Yeah, also HTTP. Now, this could be a whole stream in itself talking about Amazon S3. But I've added the ability, this is a facility thing. If you don't want to mount drives, you can audition all the files over HTTP. That's always been a Soundminer kind of thing. And so using standard HTTP, what it's going to do is look at your source path, which is like, in this case, volumes Thor. And it's going to go and try and find this HTTP server. And it's going to say, if I want to audition this sound, it's going to replace the volumes and just put in the rest of the path here. So it's going to look inside a specific path for this sound file. As people move around an awful lot, there's now the ability to use Amazon S3. So I think I will have to do like a separate little stream about this because it is a little complicated to set up. But if you have a program called Transmit by Panic, so what you do is you sign up, you go to aws.amazon.com, you sign up for an account, and then you can generate these IAM keys, which are here. And then it will then show you any of your buckets that you have. So these are all buckets that I have under my S3 account, and you can choose a specific one. You would typically only have one. And you can think of this as like a virtual volume. And what you could do then is mirror everything to FLAC. So you do this on a local drive. And then you could use transmit to synchronize the changes. What transmit does is you point it at your source FLAC files, and you say, this is my Amazon S3 bucket, and it will just synchronize everything. And once that's happened, when you go and audition, if the original sound file isn't found, it will then go to this Amazon S3 and start playing the sound from there. So it's like HTTP, but there's a few benefits to it. One is it's very secure. I mean, this is the same platform that Netflix uses to store all their video files. So the problem with HTTP, I don't want to tell people how to hack it, but you could sniff the traffic and you could sort of like guess what the path should be, and you could potentially play sounds that you shouldn't be entitled to play. With S3, any request has to be signed. And to sign a request, that's why you put in your access key ID in secret. And this is stored somewhere. It's stored in the preferences, but not in a way that even I could read it. So, you know, when you save logs to disk, it'll just show up as gobbledygook to me, because the actual encryption key is part of the same way you can recall a VST plugin rack. It's the same kind of key. So everything's all secure. So what happens is you go and play in the sound file, and it generates a URL that only is going to last for like 30 seconds. So if someone was to grab that URL from you and they try to play it back later to get your sound files, it'll just balk. It'll say it's an invalid signature. So everything's all super nice and clean, and you can also choose different formats. So if I uploaded all my WAV files to Amazon, when I go to audition, it will try and play that WAV file. I have to add FLAC as well here, but I've got OGG as well, which is it's a lossy format like MP3 is, but it's got multi-channel support, which is pretty cool. So if you have like 8 or 9 channels, you can't really do that with MP3. You can, but the encoders don't really support it that well. Whereas OGG, it's not a problem. The quality is also better than MP3. So I'll add FLAC as well. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Oh yeah, so Jeremiah is asking about that Relink to cloud hosting, which is what I'm kind of talking about here with the S3. And Chris is asking about a MIDI sequence recorder. No, but what you can do, I mean, I've done this in some previous demos, is you create a virtual MIDI channel, and then you could use something like Reaper to play the MIDI back through Soundminer. Does that make sense? I mean, I could try to do it. Audio MIDI setup. So I'll go to MIDI devices. Oh yeah, it's the IAC driver. I think that probably works. Let's give it a go. No. Why is that active? There is a way to do it, and I'll have to research how to do it. But you create an inter-application communication driver. Right? Mine is grayed out for some reason. And then inside Reaper or whatever, you would change your output, your MIDI output, to be that channel. And then back in Soundminer, from the source, you would say it's there. So instead of a MIDI keyboard now, it's getting it from a DAW. It doesn't have to be Reaper. It could be Pro Tools as well. But that way you could use all of the sequencing stuff inside here, all the pitch bending and pitch editing inside all of the MIDI track lanes, and it will just control the sampler. Of course, the ultimate question is, could the Radium Sampler become a plugin? And for that, I'll just say, stay tuned. Paul's asking about SD2 files. No, sorry, they are dead. So the capabilities that I used to use were QuickTime to read SD2 files, and Apple has gone and killed off QuickTime quite a long time ago. And their replacement format, Core Audio, does not allow reading of SD2 files. So you have to use your existing 4.5 to mirror them out to WAV files or FLAC. Oh, Tim's asking if you missed the beginning. You should be able to rewind this thing. I'm also recording it to disk, so I will also post that as well. Any other questions? What I'll also do is, I know that the info.soundminer.com is sometimes blocked for places. So maybe what I'll do is I'll throw the link up on Amazon as well. And once I disconnect from this thing, I'll put it there as well. Well, all right. I think that's it then. I'll just wait another few minutes to see if there's any other questions.